All right, now let's get into things. It really is. By the way, my name's Danny. If we haven't met before, and I say words up here, it really is good to have y'all here as we're continuing to walk through the Gospel of Matthew. And it was really interesting. Pastor Linda and I, we didn't connect before this morning on what she was going to say in the communion piece versus my message, but she talked a lot just about invitation. And that's actually what I want to talk about this morning as well, like the power of an invitation. Like, have you ever had a moment in your life, like I'll start here. Think about this. Have you ever had a moment in your life where someone's invitation just completely changed the direction of your life? I think maybe it was the moment that you were invited onto a sports team, and it was there in that like area that you found community, that you belonged. Maybe it was a college or a university acceptance letter that sent you on a new path. Maybe it was when someone gave you a job, right, after an invitation to first interview. Invitations come in many different ways, but there is like serious power in an invitation. It actually made me think something that happened in my life. 17 years ago, just this past week, 17 years ago, I convinced a young woman named Natalie Sykes to find her way all the way out to the Wagner Woods in Essex. Little did she know that before I arranged a way for her to get there, that me and another guy named Aaron Wagner, we cleared out a section of the woods really far back. And what I did is before she got there, I set all the trees up with these really nice lights, like super romantic. Like super romantic. And then, I even set up a piano out in the middle of the woods. Yeah, I know. I convinced her to get out there, and we walked through the dark of the woods, and all of a sudden we walked into this area, and just these bright lights in the trees. I played her a song that I wrote her on the piano, and just like a Hallmark movie, it started to like drizzle rain, like super romantic stuff. Then I got down on one knee, and I asked her that question, right? Like, will you marry me? And you have to understand that it was in that moment, the invitation to Natalie was not an invitation just to put a ring on her finger, right? It was this invitation to join me in this lifelong journey of sharing dreams together and supporting each other in the good times and in the bad times. Like that was the invitation on the table. And she said yes. She said yes, I know. And someone's thinking, Danny, did you seriously just use all of that time to brag on your engagement story and to make other men feel bad? Yes. Yes, I did. But I also told the story to show you that there's very real power in an invitation. Very real power. Like an invitation that comes in. Like today, what we're going to talk about here is this invitation of God. And what I want you to understand is that this invitation that we're going to wrestle with, what we're going to see, is the most important invitation that has ever been given. It's actually way more important than even the story that I just told you. This invitation, if we say yes, this invitation has the power not just to change you for the day, the week, or the year. This invitation has the power to change your life forever. And not just your life, but the lives of many else, many others. So let's read. Go with me, if you have a Bible, to Matthew chapter 4. We're going to pick it up in verse 18. We don't have a large text to get through today. It's actually pretty small, but let me just set this up. Jesus here is about 30 years old. He's at the beginning of his public ministry. What we've already studied is that he's been baptized by John the Baptist. He has battled with the devil in the wilderness and won. And then what he does after that is he heads north. If you know your Israel geography, which I'm guessing most of you probably don't, you haven't studied it, but the northern region of Israel is called the Galilee. Okay, it's literally a region of land that kind of surrounds the Sea of Galilee. It's that body of water that we have so many famous stories that we're going to get into in the next little bit. But this is what happens. Jesus, 30 years old, beginning of his ministry, goes north to the Galilee, and then we read this, verse 18. It says, as Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon called Peter and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. Come, follow me, Jesus said. This is the invitation. And I will send you out to fish for people. At once they left their nets and they followed him. Going on from there, he saw two other brothers, James the son of Zebedee and his brother John. They were in a boat with their father Zebedee preparing their nets. Jesus called them, and immediately they left the boat and their father, and they followed him. Now, we'll just push the pause button right there, okay? So that's as far as we're going into the Gospel of Matthew. But in what I just read you, there's honestly something spectacular happening. But if it's only spectacular if you understand the Jewish context. If you don't understand the context, honestly, it's a little bit underwhelming. It just kind of seems that, okay, well, Jesus is just giving a few guys like a job offer. Like, what's so amazing about that? But if you get the background, this story that I just read you is absolutely backwards. So let me explain. I actually heard a pastor teach on this years ago, and then this week in my own study, I just kind of nerded out in my office trying to learn it all again. But let me teach you, because you have to get here to understand this story. I need to teach you the first century Jewish schooling system, because it's very different than ours. Okay, like today, kids go to school and they learn like your math, your science, physical education, that kind of stuff. In the first century Jewish world, school was very, very different. It almost exclusively revolved around the scriptures, like the religious system, and there was three different levels to their education system. The first level was something called Beit Sefer. This was most Jewish boys and girls. They would go to school at about the age of 6, somewhere around there, and their job, this is school, right here at a young age, your job was to learn the Torah. The Torah is the first 5 books of the Bible, okay? But get this, their job was not just to learn what was in the Torah, their job was to memorize the Torah. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, memorized by age 10. Okay? Just like wrap your head around this for a moment. Now, at the end of level 1, what would happen is most of those kids would go home and they would then learn the trade of their fathers, whatever that was, and that was different things in different families. But what would happen is the best of the best would actually then move on to level 2. Level 2 was something called Beit Talmud. This went on for about another 5 years, usually between ages 10 and 15. These young teenagers would then study not just the first 5 books. They would actually study Genesis all the way down to Malachi, the entire Old Testament, and not just understand the stories. Their job was to memorize the entire Old Testament. Every word, every line, every story in order. Genesis through Malachi, memorized. At the end of level 2, again, most of those kids would then be sent home. They would kind of drop out of the school system. They'd go learn the trade of their father. But the best of the best of the best would then make it on to level 3. Level 3 is something that they called Beit Midrash. Now, in Beit Midrash, this was basically a season where this young teenager would then apply to be the disciple of a rabbi. And they would sit down with a rabbi, and the rabbi would grill you with questions. The rabbi's just trying to figure out, like, do you actually have what it takes to follow me? Are you the best of the best of the best? And even after those kids that made it that far, that memorized the entire Old Testament, the majority of them would once again be sent home. They would drop out, and they would go learn the trade of their fathers. Only the best of the best of the best of the best would make it all the way to the end and would actually become a disciple of a rabbi. That's the schooling system. Now, with that in mind, go back with me into Matthew chapter 4 of what we just read. Rabbi Jesus is walking by the Sea of Galilee, and he comes across Peter and Andrew, James and John. Question, what are they doing? Fishing. And so the question is, if they're fishing, think that through based on what I just told you. Then what that means is that they're not following another rabbi. And if they're not following another rabbi, then what that means is that they are not the best of the best of the best. These guys, Peter, Andrew, James, and John, you have to understand this. They're dropouts. Like, for real, they're dropouts. We don't know at what point or how far they made it through, but we know that they didn't make it to the end. We know that at some point here, they gave up in the school system. Somebody didn't believe in them. Somebody said, these guys do not have what it takes. And then they went back and learned the trade of their father. And then we have this wild story where Jesus comes to the dropouts and says, do you want to be my disciple? Do you want to come and follow me? I mean, the obvious question is Jesus confused? Like, does he not know how this works? Like, clearly, does he not know that there's probably a whole bunch of other people that are more qualified than these 4 men in this story right here? Is Jesus lost in this? No. Hear me. This is Jesus the King ushering in his kingdom. And the kingdom of God is upside down. You hear me? The kingdom of the world is what I just taught you. The kingdom of the world is who's the best of the best. We look for the polished. We look for those who are talented, educated, with all the accolades. But the kingdom of God is very, very different. The upside down kingdom of God, you have to understand it's not about status or worldly success. Here's how the upside down kingdom of God works. It's about being seen by him and then just simply responding to the invitation. It's actually that simple. The world says you need to be better than the next person. God says, I see you, and I invite you into something deeper than you can ever imagine. And this is what I want to show you today. This is what I just want to slow down and just kind of walk you through. There's 2 things out of this story of Jesus calling the dropouts that I just want us to see now for us in like 2025. What does this mean today? If you're taking notes, you can just write this down. Here's my first point. Jesus sees you where you are. Okay? Jesus sees you where you are. There's actually 2 different places in the text that I just read you that it says that Jesus saw them. In verse 18, it says that he saw Peter and Andrew casting their nets into the water. Again, in verse 20, it says that he saw James and John preparing their nets in the boat. Parkwood, Jesus sees. And when I say Jesus sees, I don't mean he has eyeballs like you and I. Do you hear me? Yes, he does. He sees in the physical, but Jesus is God in the flesh, and he's actually able to see what others cannot see. We get really good insight into this. Let me just show you this. This will be fun. In the gospel, in Mark's gospel, chapter 2, there's this story where Jesus heals a paralyzed man. And then what happens right after he heals him, the paralytic, he then forgives him of his sins. Well, the Pharisees are watching this. And without talking to one another, in Mark's gospel, it says that they started to think in their mind that Jesus was blaspheming God. No words were shared. In their mind, look at Mark's gospel, chapter 2, verse 8. It says, immediately Jesus knew in his spirit that this is what they were thinking in their hearts. And he said to them, why are you thinking these things? Isn't that crazy? Like, honestly, can you imagine just being around Jesus? He's not just aware, of what you say. He doesn't just say to these disciples, why are you doing this? Why are you saying this? No. He says, why are you thinking this? How is he able to do that? Because Jesus sees. Let me just give you another one. In John 2:25, this amazing story, right? We all know where Jesus clears out the temple because the people had made the house of prayer into a den of thieves. But look at this. It says this about Jesus. Verse 25 says, he did not need any testimony about mankind, for he knew what was in each person. How does he know what's in the hearts of each person? Because he has spiritual eyes to see what others cannot see. Let me just give you one more. The author of Hebrews writes this in chapter 4, verse 13. He says, nothing in all creation is hidden from God's sight. Everything is uncovered and laid bare before the eyes of him to whom we must give an account. Just go. That's one of those verses that it's like, you just feel exposed, right? Like, Jesus sees, Parkwood, Jesus sees you right where you are. And when walking along the Sea of Galilee in Matthew chapter 4, he saw Peter and Andrew, and he saw James and John. And in that moment, he didn't just see their physical location or their stature. He saw their hearts. He saw their minds. He saw the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like, he saw it all. Parkwood, like, friend, hear me this morning. Jesus sees it all. That moment when you did the unthinkable and you worked really, really hard to make sure that no one else would ever see, Jesus saw. That moment when you gave sacrificially of your time, your talent, your treasure to actually help someone in need and no one else was around in that moment, Jesus saw. That moment when you were wrongfully accused, that moment when you were slandered, beat up, that moment when you alone in your pain and in your agony was shedding tears and you thought to yourself that you were all alone. I want you to hear me. You weren't. Jesus saw. There has not been a moment in your life that he was not privy to. He was with you then, he saw you then, and he sees you now. He has had a front row seat to every single moment, every tear shed, every moment of joy, and every mistake that you have ever made in your life. Jesus has seen it all. Which is honestly what makes the next part of my sermon stunning, if I don't mind saying so myself. Just give myself a pat on the back here. Not only is it true that Jesus sees you where you are, but it is also true today that Jesus invites you to where he is. And this is just what I'll close with. I'm not going to talk for long today. Jesus invites you to where he is. I just need you to see this. Jesus walks up to these fishermen the dropouts, the guys that clearly are not the best of the best of the best, and he sees them. And again, when I say he sees them, I mean he sees them. And what's interesting is in this moment, Jesus, God in the flesh, is now seeing on full display the good, the bad, and the ugly, all wrapped up in these guys and their fishing nets and all this stuff. And interestingly, he doesn't hide his face in disgust. He doesn't grow angry over their sin and boil over. No. You know what he does? He sees them right where they are, and then he invites them right to where he is. Look at it just one more time. Matthew chapter 4, verse 19 says, "Come, follow me," Jesus said, "and I will send you out to fish for people." He doesn't say, "Come and follow me and we'll walk into a new set of rules and religion." He doesn't say, or like, "Come follow a system that's going to weigh you down." No, he says, "Follow me." And he says, if you come and if you follow me, he says, I'm going to give you purpose beyond your wildest imagination. He says, you think you know purpose. You think that you're living your best life right now out on this lake catching fish. But he says, if you come and if you apprentice under me, if you follow me, if you give up your ways for my ways, he says, you're not going to fish for fish. He says, you're going to fish for people. You're going to have more purpose in your life than you'll ever know what to do with. Follow me, Jesus says, and I'll send you out to fish for people. Full disclosure, I'm not a good fisherman. Just thought you should know. I love fishing, I really do. But I'm just not good at it. The last time I fished was probably 7 years ago, somewhere around there. A man in our church named Tim Atkins took me out on his boat. And we went out early one morning and we fished for hours. He caught so many fish. I caught a stick. I'm not kidding. And I was so excited because I thought I finally had something, and it was a stick. And I'm not a good fisherman. I wish I was. But you know what? At the end of the day, I'm actually okay with that, because God hasn't called me to fish the Detroit River. He hasn't. He's called me to fish for people in his kingdom. And he's calling you to do the exact same thing. Hear the call this morning. Hear the invitation this morning over your life. Would you come? And would you follow me? And if you do, we're giving up our ways for his, our dreams for his, our purposes for his, as we begin to live out his mission in this world. And I get it, because I've preached sermons a lot like this in the past, and every time I do, there's always somebody or a group of people that, like, what you're going through right now in your mind and in your heart is saying to yourself, well, I'm just not one of those Christians. I don't mind coming to church, and I don't mind singing the songs and taking the notes, and even now and then I might even raise my hands, but I'm not one of those Christians. One of those, you know, the ones that go out and actually live out there and talk to people out there and, you know, that kind of stuff. Like, that's not me. Friend, like, I'm hearing you. If you're here today and you're just like, I'm not the best of the best, clearly there's other better people. Can I remind you for a moment who Jesus called here? Like, let's just think for a moment just about these guys. These guys right here, the four men. Peter, let's talk about Peter, okay? Peter is a hot mess. And Jesus saw it that day on the lake. Peter was impulsive. He was know-it-all, violent, and at times he had a filthy mouth. Andrew Andrew just seems to struggle to know when to step up and share his opinion. He's timid. And we even have a story with the one time maybe he does step up, it just seems to lack faith in what Jesus can actually do. And then you have the other two guys, James and John. You know, they had a nickname, the Sons of Thunder. Isn't that sounds awesome, doesn't it? The Sons, it's not an awesome nickname, okay? Let me tell you why. You wanna know how they got this nickname? They got the nickname because everywhere they went, they were trying to bring down the judgment of God where Jesus was trying to bring peace. There's even this story where Jesus, they were trying to set up camp for the night in Samaria, and the Samaritans and the Jews didn't have a good relationship, and so the Samaritans said, we don't want Jesus in our city. And then James and John, the Sons of Thunder, they said, Jesus, do you want us to call down fire from heaven and just blow them all up? And Jesus is like, what? Just rebukes them. The Sons of Thunder. Peter, the impulsive, Andrew, the timid, and the Sons of Thunder. This is who Jesus saw, and this is who Jesus called. This is who Jesus invited to come alongside of him in this journey. And so if you think today that you're not the best of the best, or there's someone better, that you're disqualified, hear me. If Jesus can use them, Jesus can use you. So right now, don't do this thing, because we have this thing that we do. Sometimes when we hear a sermon, we have this way of distancing ourselves from it, and we have this thought that goes through our head, oh, I really wish my husband was here. He needs this. I really wish my neighbor was here. I really wish my friend, my coworker, they need this message. Hear me, it's interesting, right? They're not here and you are. Don't distance yourself from this. Jesus sees you right where you are today. All of you. Every hurt, every pain, every tear shed, every embarrassing mistake that you've tried to bury from the world, he sees you. And today, he is inviting you not to a new religion, not to a set of rules or a weighty system. He is inviting you to himself. And just saying, would you come and follow me? There's a million invitations that we will receive in this life, but none are more important than this one. Because maybe you're here today and you're just like, I've actually never said yes to this invitation. And if that's you, I just want to invite you in this moment this morning. Hear the invitation of God, just like Peter and Andrew and James and John. Come and follow me. Would you come and follow me? And if you do, you will walk in new purpose, in new life, in a new joy. Can we stand on up all across this room?